It was the 6th of August, 1945. The sun was rising over Hiroshima, bathing the city in golden light. Yamaguchi, a 29-year-old naval engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, had spent the past 3 months in Hiroshima working on a design for a new oil tanker. That morning, he was preparing to leave for home in Nagasaki. As he walked toward the shipyard, he heard the distant hum of an American B-29 bomber in the sky. At precisely 8:15 a.m., the world turned white. The explosion sent a wave of fire and force through the city, incinerating buildings, shattering windows, and tossing people like rag dolls. Yamaguchi, standing just 3 kilometers from ground zero, was thrown into the air by the blast. When he came to, his body was burned, his eardrums shattered, and his city turned to ruins. The bomb had wiped out nearly everything in an instant, 80,000 lives snuffed out in a heartbeat. Disoriented and in agony, Yamaguchi stumbled through the charred remains of Hiroshima. He made his way to an air raid shelter and tended to his wounds as best he could, but something stronger than the pain drove him. He needed to get home. He spent a night in the ruins, surrounded by the cries of the injured, the acrid stench of burning flesh thick in the air. Somehow, against all odds, he mustered the strength to continue. Against all odds, Yamaguchi survived the night. The following day, he managed to find a functioning train of the few still running and boarded it for Nagasaki. The train ride was surreal, passing through a country still unaware of the true horror that had unfolded. The other passengers, mostly injured and desperate, shared grim stories of what they had seen. The journey was slow and agonizing, but by the 8th of August, Yamaguchi finally arrived home, his body wrapped in bandages, his wife and child overjoyed that he had returned alive. He could barely comprehend the horror he had witnessed, but duty called. He reported to work the very next day. As he sat in the Mitsubishi offices, recounting his experience to his supervisor, he saw it again, the flash. It was the 9th of August, 1945. This time, it was Nagasaki's turn. The second atomic bomb exploded at 11:02 a.m. The force of the blast, though somewhat mitigated by the surrounding mountains, was still devastating.
Once again, Yamaguchi was 3 kilometers from the epicenter. Once again, he survived. His bandages, already covering burns from Hiroshima, now hid fresh wounds from Nagasaki. It was incomprehensible and impossible nightmare made real. His home was leveled, his city transformed into a hellscape of twisted metal and flame. Crawling through the wreckage, he found his wife and child miraculously alive. The second blast had spared them, but they were now trapped in the same nightmare he had already lived once before. So, in the days that followed, the world changed. Japan surrendered, the war ended, and the age of nuclear fear began. Yamaguchi, now twice a hibakusha survivor of the atomic bombing, suffered from radiation sickness for years. His skin bore the scars of fire, his body weakened by radiation, but his spirit remained unbroken. For decades, he lived in relative quiet, raising a family and working as a teacher. But as he grew older, he realized that his survival carried a weight greater than his own suffering. He had been granted a second chance not once, but twice, and he would use it to speak. In his later years, Yamaguchi became an advocate for nuclear disarmament, sharing his story with the world. His voice, though quiet and humble, carried the weight of history. He spoke not out of anger, but out of a desperate hope that no one else would ever endure what he had. He met with world leaders, gave testimony about the horror of nuclear war, and fought tirelessly for a future where such destruction would never be unleashed again. Despite the trauma, despite the physical pain that lingered for decades, Yamaguchi found purpose. His story became more than just a tale of survival. It became a warning, a plea, and a symbol of the resilience of the human spirit. Tsutomu Yamaguchi lived to the age of 93, passing away in 2010. He remains the only officially recognized survivor of both atomic bombings. His life, scarred by war and fire, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. He did not just survive, he endured. And in doing so, he became a witness to the unimaginable, a reminder of humanity's capacity for destruction, and perhaps most importantly, a voice for peace.